In 2020, because of COVID-19, traveling is out, but there's no reason you can't meet old and make new friends at an Agile conference. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast teamed up with Tom Henriksen to organize the 4th year of the Agile Online Summit, and you can attend for free. There will be networking events, lots of talks on important topics, and 8 amazing keynotes from Mary Poppendick to Alan Holub, Jeff Patton, who's the creator of user story mapping, Neil Killick, who's a no estimates pioneer, Jeff Watts, author of Scrum Mastery, a great book for Scrum Masters, Jeff Gotthelf, Bob Galen, and our very own Marcus Hammarberg, who's the author of the Bungsu Story, a great Agile transformation story. You can get your free tickets at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word. Once again, bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word, and the link is also on the show notes. You can get your free ticket or opt for the full digital access that lets you keep all the conference videos forever. And for example, organize Agile learning sessions at work by watching those videos. You can get the full digital access at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. But don't forget, there will be lots of live networking events, so I'll see you at the conference floor. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode this week with Pieter Verbaarschott. Hi Pieter, welcome back.
Hi Vasco.
So Pieter, on Wednesdays we are looking into what might be one of the most important skills we have as Scrum Masters, that is that of working with change, of being a change leader and a change agent. And this is, of course, because we are, as Scrum Masters, often responsible for working with teams, people, or even organizations to get them to a different level, right? And whether it is Scrum adoption, that's one thing, or whether it is a personal change, that's another thing, or maybe an organization-wide transformation, we're constantly involved with change. So tell us a story of a change process that you were involved with. Tell us what happened, what you learned from that experience, and specifically focus on the tools, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Yeah, so as a bit of context, I work in a larger organization that, like many others, started an agile transformation a couple of years ago, which meant that we formed Scrum teams, 15 or so in product development, and we started our journey from there. This was also the time where I became a full-time Scrum Master in that whole process. So this meant, of course, that the organization was going through a long series of changes. We expected this at the onset of our Agile transformation journey. And early on, me and a few of my colleagues, we decided that we needed to have some sort of training program, let's say, for the new teams, but also for any new hires from all departments outside of technology, that we could teach how to what to expect in our company. We work with Scrum. We work with Scrum in these departments. How can you engage with Scrum teams? Why do we do this? What's the part of the journey that we went through? Where are we now? And what are we hoping to achieve in the near future? This sort of training we started to provide for new hires and existing Scrum teams. The interesting part here, I think, is that in the beginning, we had this fairly static training program, like 2-hour lecture with some slides and very single-minded training. But because of the groups that we trained every month, we have a lot of new hires. We have maybe a classroom full of new hires every month. The variety of these trainees guided us in developing a very flexible and tailor-made training program. So one way of guiding the change in the organization is to teach and explain to a lot of new people what's going on with Scrum and Agile and why we do this. I think that's an excellent way to slowly influenced the culture of the company, let's say. And the other interesting aspect here is that we changed our training program itself by constantly doing this every month, from a static lecture into a very flexible sort of boot camp style of training session, which is completely tailor-made on the spot for the group that we're training. So a lot of personal experience with setting up training programs and making them really flexible is the change that I personally went through there as well.
One of the things that interests me, of course, is the process of changing your own approach to training, right? Because I imagine you got all kinds of feedback. Then, people went back to the teams, and after that, you saw what worked, what didn't work. Because obviously, I'm sure you started detecting things that you trained but didn't really stick, and other things you trained but actually stuck, and people were taking those into their daily lives, as it were. So walk us through that process. Like, how did you collect feedback? How did you learn from what you were training so that you could then change the training program?
Yeah, so at the time we were learning and educating ourselves a lot about what good training tactics would be, right? So we really try to apply some learnings into the trainings. Early on, we started to indeed to ask for feedback at the end of the training, something very obvious for a Scrum Master to do. And actually, based on that and the fact that our audience was so varied, right? We had people new in the company and people who worked for 10 years in the company, people new with Scrum, but also experienced Scrum team members in the same group sometimes. So we were able to use the feedback in iterations, actually, by doing this training every month and by changing it a little bit every month. We were able to sort of create a very different training after a year of 12 of those sessions, let's say, by using the feedback. And we found out halfway through this development process, I said to my colleague, actually, the way we develop this training program is pure Scrum, right? We have a product, we deliver every month the training sessions, we use the feedback of our stakeholders, the trainees, and we bring a new training the next month. So that was a good realization, and that gave us the confidence that we're completely on the right path in developing it this way.
Yeah, especially the aspect of constantly delivering, right? So because the collecting feedback on something that you're not going to do on a regular basis, it's going to have maybe not very much of an impact, but once you start incorporating that, okay, so here's the feedback, how do we change the next one? Here's the feedback, how do we change the next one? Rather than trying to come up with a perfect training, what you guys were doing is incremental delivery.
Exactly. So if you were to join or experience our training now, it's quite a good experience. We get excellent feedback, and we know in every session how well we deliver, because we're there and we're there with our trainees, and it's actually it's now so much structured as Scrum and sprints. That's throughout the whole training session as well. So we're doing Scrum throughout the session as well. So all the feedback mechanisms are built in on top of the actual topics in our training, let's say. So that's interesting. Yeah. So the fact that we sort of put the next training on the schedule for next month, which sort of puts us on the spot to deliver something we take seriously.
Yeah, once you make that decision to communicate it, you can't back out.
That's what we do now, actually. If we want to deliver something, me and my colleagues will say, okay, let's start at the end. We put out the date and the invite and let's say the brochure for the invite. That's the first thing we do. So then we have a date, and then we have like a couple of weeks to prepare it, but it's already there, and that gives us a good incentive to work towards it. And because we've done this now a lot of times, we're actually now becoming quite experienced in actually setting up custom training programs or sessions, right? So we can do these things, and we're now
and setting the date is also a specific or a very concrete way to use one of the principles in Scrum, which is time boxing.
Yep. All of our sessions that we do, our training sessions, are extremely time boxed. That's one way where we show throughout the training how time boxes work, just by having them.
Absolutely. That's a great example of eating your own dog food, or as I prefer to say, drinking your own champagne.
Yeah, nice one. Exactly. That's what we've been doing. Indeed. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Pieter.
Thank you.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role, we'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.